The Valorian scout ship floated in the darkness between stars. It was a small vessel, built for watching and hiding, not for fighting. Its name was the Whisper of Stars, and it had been exploring unknown space for nearly 200 years. High Observer Threll stood at the center of the bridge. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that changed color when he felt strong emotions. Right now, his skin was calm blue. Everything was normal. Everything was quiet. The Valorians were an old species. They had traveled the galaxy for 40,000 years, watching other civilizations rise and fall. They never fought. They never conquered. They simply watched, recorded, and learned. Their scanning technology was the best in the known universe. They could read a ship's secrets from thousands of kilometers away, and no one ever knew they were there. "High Observer," said Sub-Observer Keth, his second in command, "we have detected an unknown vessel near the dead star." Threll turned to look at the main screen. A ship floated in the darkness. It was ugly. There was no other word for it. The vessel was blocky and rough, covered in strange shapes and sharp angles. It looked like someone had welded metal boxes together, without any plan. "Primitive design," Threll said. "Probably a young species. Begin the standard scan." Keth pressed the controls and the scanning beam reached out toward the unknown ship. This was routine. The Valorians had done this thousands of times. The computer would read the ship's systems, weapons, crew, and technology in about 12 seconds. Then they would add this new species to their records and move on. Threll waited. 12 seconds passed. The scan did not complete. "Is there a problem?" Threll asked. Keth looked confused. His skin turned a worried shade of yellow. "The scan is still processing, High Observer. This has never happened before." 30 seconds passed, then 1 minute, then 2 minutes. Other crew members began to notice. They stopped their work and stared at their screens. The scanning computer was the most advanced technology the Valorians had ever built. It had analyzed warships from the Corax Empire in 8 seconds. It had mapped the Dreadnought fleet in 11 seconds. It had never taken more than 15 seconds to complete any scan in its entire existence. 3 minutes passed. Warning symbols began to appear on the screens. "High Observer," Keth said, his voice shaking. "The computer is requesting more processing power." Threll felt his skin turn pale. "That is not possible." "I am reading the message directly. The computer says the data is too complex. It needs additional resources to continue." Threll walked closer to the main screen. The ugly ship still floated there, looking like nothing special. It was smaller than many warships they had scanned. It did not glow with energy. It did not have any visible weapons that seemed impressive. "What could possibly be so complex about that vessel?" Threll asked. The computer began sending partial results. The first data package arrived, and Keth opened it on his screen. His skin turned completely white. "High Observer, you need to see this." Threll moved to stand behind Keth. The data showed the hull composition of the unknown ship. Most species used 1 or 2 materials for their hulls. Advanced species might use 3 or 4. This ship's hull was made of 17 different materials, layered in patterns the computer could not understand. Some layers seemed designed to absorb energy weapons. Others appeared to exist only to confuse scanning equipment. That explained why the scan was taking so long. The ship's very skin was built to hide its secrets. "What kind of species builds a hull like this?" Keth whispered. More data arrived. Power systems. The Valorians used quantum fold reactors, the most advanced power source known to exist. This ship had 3 different power systems running at the same time. The computer identified a fusion reactor, then something that looked like a contained piece of a star, and then a third power source that the computer simply labeled as "Unknown, recommend keeping distance." Threll felt cold fear spreading through his body. "Show me the weapons." The weapons data began to load, and it kept loading, and it kept loading. Missile systems, energy weapons, kinetic accelerators, point defense turrets, something called a mass accelerator cannon that the computer calculated could punch through a small moon, and mounted on the ship's spine, a weapon so large that it had its own dedicated power source. "This is a warship," Threll said. "This is not an exploration vessel or a trading ship. This is a pure warship." High Observer, there is more. Keth's hands were trembling as he pulled up the crew data. I have the crew count. The number appeared on screen. 2,412 living beings. The bridge fell completely silent. Every Valorian stared at that number. Why? Keth asked, his voice barely a whisper. Why would any species need 2,000 soldiers on a single ship? What are they preparing to fight? Before Threll could answer, another alarm sounded. Red lights flashed across the bridge. Keth looked at his console, and his skin turned a shade of gray that Threll had never seen before. High Observer, Keth said slowly. They have detected our scan. That is impossible. No species has ever detected our scans. They detected it. They traced it back to us. And High Observer, Keth looked up, his eyes wide with terror. The ship is turning. It is turning toward us. On the main screen, the ugly human ship began to move. Its engines glowed with blue fire. Slowly and like a giant beast waking from sleep, it turned its nose toward the whisper of stars. Threll stared at the screen. In 40,000 years of exploration, the Valorians had never been detected. They had never been found. They had never been hunted. Until now. What do we do? Keth asked. Threll did not have an answer. The bridge of the Whisper of Stars had become a place of fear. Every Valorian stood frozen at their station, watching the unknown ship turn toward them. The scanning computer continued to send data, each new piece of information worse than the last. High Observer, we should run, Keth said. We should jump to hyperspace immediately. Threll wanted to agree. Every part of his ancient survival instinct screamed at him to flee. But he was a High Observer. He had a duty to gather information. The Valorian Council would want to know everything about this new species. Continue receiving the scan data, Threll ordered. We need to know what we are dealing with. The crew obeyed, though their skin had all turned the pale color of fear. The data kept flowing onto their screens. The hull analysis was complete now. 17 layers of different metals and materials woven together in ways the computer could not explain. Some layers would reflect energy weapons. Others would absorb them. Still others seemed designed to break apart on impact, spreading the force of any attack across the entire hull. This was not just armor. This was armor that had been designed by beings who expected to be shot at, often. Look at this pattern, one of the science officers said. These layers are not random. They were placed to protect specific areas of the ship. Someone designed this hull expecting enemies to aim for weak points, and they made sure there are no weak points. The power system analysis arrived next. Threll studied it carefully. The fusion reactor was the main power source. It was large and powerful, but not remarkable by galactic standards. Many species used fusion power, but the second power source was something else entirely. The computer called it a stellar fragment containment system. As far as Threll could understand, these beings had taken a piece of a living star and trapped it inside their ship. They were carrying a tiny sun in their engine room. Is that even possible? Keth asked. Apparently it is, Threll replied. Then there was the third power source. The computer still could not identify it. The readings made no sense. It seemed to exist in multiple states at once, both active and dormant. The only note the computer could provide was a warning. If this power source was ever fully activated, the energy release would be equivalent to a small supernova. They are carrying a bomb, Threll realized. They are flying through space with a weapon that could destroy everything within 1,000,000 kilometers. Why would anyone do this? No one had an answer. The weapons analysis was the longest section. Threll had to scroll through page after page of information. This ship had more weapons than some entire fleets. The missile systems alone took up 3 pages. There were missiles designed to track heat signatures, missiles designed to follow energy patterns, missiles that split into dozens of smaller missiles, missiles that released clouds of metal shards, missiles that carried nuclear warheads, missiles that carried antimatter warheads. How many missiles does this ship carry? Threll asked. The computer provided an estimate, over 4,000 missiles of various types, stored in magazines throughout the ship. The energy weapons were equally terrifying. Laser batteries lined the sides of the ship. Plasma cannons sat in armored turrets. Something called a particle beam array ran along the ship's spine. These weapons could fire in any direction, creating overlapping fields of destruction. But the worst was the kinetic weapons. Threll had always believed that kinetic weapons were primitive. Why throw rocks when you could shoot lasers? But these humans had taken the concept of throwing rocks and turned it into something horrifying. The mass accelerator cannon was the ship's main weapon. It was a tube that ran through the center of the ship, from back to front. The computer calculated that it could accelerate a solid tungsten slug to 3% of the speed of light. At that velocity, a piece of metal the size of a small vehicle would hit with the force of a nuclear explosion. No shields could stop it. No armor could survive it. And the humans had built it to shoot through moons. "Hi, observer," Keth said quietly. "The ship has stopped turning." Threll looked at the main screen. The human ship was now facing them directly. Its weapons had not activated. Its shields had not raised. It simply floated there, watching them. "Why are they not attacking?" someone asked. Threll did not know. By all logic, a ship this heavily armed should have destroyed them already. The Valorians had been caught spying. Most species would consider that an act of war, but the humans just sat there, waiting. The communication console suddenly beeped, an incoming signal. "They are hailing us," the communications officer said. Threll felt his heart beating fast. This was it. The humans would demand their surrender. They would threaten destruction. They would make impossible demands. "Open the channel," Threll ordered. The translator worked for a moment, processing the alien language. Then a female voice filled the bridge. It was calm, relaxed, almost amused. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Yuna of the Terran Republic battleship Teguk Rising. Please do not run away. We noticed you scanning us, which is fine. We are curious about you too. If you would like to talk, we promise not to shoot. We only shoot people who shoot first, and sometimes not even then, if we are feeling generous." The bridge was silent. Keth turned to look at Threll with an expression of complete confusion. "They are inviting us to talk," Keth said, "after we scan them?" Threll did not understand either. In his experience, species with this much firepower did not ask politely. They demanded. They threatened. They conquered. But this human captain was offering conversation. She sounded like she was inviting them to tea. "What do we do?" Keth asked. Threll considered his options. They could run, but he knew somehow that this ship could catch them if it wanted to. They could fight, but that was suicide. Or they could accept the invitation and hope these humans meant what they said. "Respond to their hail," Threll ordered. "Tell them we accept." It was possibly the most dangerous decision he had ever made. But Threll was a high observer. His job was to learn about new species. And right now, nothing in the universe was more interesting than these strange, terrifying, polite humans. The bridge of the Teguk Rising was nothing like the Valorian ship. Where the whisper of stars was quiet and calm, this human vessel was full of noise and movement. People walked back and forth, talking to each other, calling out reports, and working at their stations with quick, efficient movements. Captain Yuna sat in the command chair at the center of it all. She was a small woman with black hair tied back in a simple style. Her uniform was dark blue with gold markings on the shoulders. In her hand, she held a metal cup filled with hot tea. She took a sip as she watched the main screen. "Report," she said. Lieutenant Dohun turned from his tactical console. He was a young man with sharp eyes and a serious face. "The alien ship is holding position, Captain. They have not raised shields or charged weapons. Our scan detected 42 life forms aboard. Minimal armament, basic propulsion. It appears to be an exploration vessel." "Interesting," Yuna said. "They were scanning us quite thoroughly. Did they get much?" "Some, but not everything. Our jamming protocols activated when we detected the scan. They got about 60% of our systems before we blocked them." Dohun allowed himself a small smile. "They probably got just enough information to scare themselves." Ensign Mirai looked up from the communications station. She was young, barely out of the academy with a round face and quick fingers. "Captain, they are probably terrified right now. Their scan was very advanced. They would have seen our weapons, our power systems, everything. And then we turned to face them." Yuna nodded slowly. She understood fear. She had felt it many times herself, in battles and desperate situations. She did not enjoy causing fear in others, especially beings who had done nothing wrong. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let us say hello before they panic and do something foolish." Mirai worked her console. "Channel open, Captain." Yuna set down her tea and spoke clearly. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Yuna of the Terran Republic battleship Teguk Rising. Please do not run away. We noticed you scanning us, which is fine. We are curious about you too. If you would like to talk, we promise not to shoot. We only shoot people who shoot first. And sometimes, not even then, if we are feeling generous." There was a pause. Then the alien response came through, translated by the ship's computer into slightly awkward but understandable words. "Human vessel, this is High Observer Threll of the Valorian Observation Fleet. We accept your invitation to communicate. We apologize for scanning your ship without permission. It is our standard protocol when encountering unknown vessels." Yuna smiled. The aliens were polite. That was a good sign. "No apology necessary, High Observer. We scan unknown ships too. It is only sensible. Would you like to establish a visual connection? I find that conversations work better when you can see who you are talking to." Another pause, then, "We agree. Establishing visual connection now." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Yuna was looking at the bridge of an alien ship. The beings standing there were tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shift colors as she watched. They had large eyes and long fingers. They looked fragile, like they might break if someone touched them too hard. At the same time, she knew the aliens were seeing her, a small human woman sitting in a chair, surrounded by her crew. She wondered what they thought of her. High Observer Threll stepped forward on his bridge. His skin had turned a pale shade of pink. Yuna did not know what that meant, but she guessed it was surprise. "You are smaller than I expected," Threll said. Yuna laughed. It was a genuine laugh, warm and friendly. "We get that a lot. Humans are not very impressive to look at. We are soft. We break easily. We cannot survive in vacuum or extreme temperatures. But we have learned to make up for our weaknesses in other ways." "Your ship," Threll said slowly. "Our scan revealed many weapons, many more than any species we have ever encountered. Yes, the Teguk Rising is well armed. She is a good ship. I have commanded her for 6 years now." Threll's skin shifted to a color Yuna could not identify. "Why do you need so many weapons? Are you at war?" Yuna considered the question carefully. It was a reasonable thing to ask. If she had encountered a ship covered in guns, she would want to know the same thing. "Not currently," she said. "The Terran Republic is at peace with all known species. We have treaties and trade agreements. We even have friends among the stars." "Then why build a ship like this?" Yuna's smile faded slightly. "Because we have learned that peace does not last forever. Our history taught us that lesson many times. We build ships like the Teguk Rising so that when peace ends, we are ready." Lieutenant Dohan leaned over to Ensign Mirai. "The aliens look confused," he whispered. Mirai nodded. "They probably come from a peaceful species. They might not understand why anyone would prepare for war during peacetime." On the screen, Threll was conferring with his second-in-command. The other alien, slightly shorter than Threll, kept glancing at the screen with what looked like fear in his large eyes. Finally, Threll turned back to face Yuna. "Captain Yuna, I have a request. The Valorian people are dedicated to learning about other species. We have traveled the galaxy for 40,000 years, recording and studying civilizations. We mean no harm to anyone. We simply wish to understand." "That is a noble goal," Yuna said. "What is your request?" "I would like to visit your ship, to see it with my own eyes, to understand your people better." Threll paused, his skin turned a darker shade. "I know this is a strange request. You have no reason to trust us. But I believe that understanding between species is worth the risk." Yuna was quiet for a moment. She looked at Dohun, who shrugged. She looked at Mirai, who nodded eagerly. She looked around at her bridge crew, who all seemed curious rather than worried. Then she made her decision. "High Observer Threll, you are welcome aboard the Teguk Rising. Bring whoever you wish. I will give you a tour myself." She smiled again. "Just do not touch any buttons without asking first. Some of them are connected to very dangerous things." Threll's skin turned completely white, but he nodded. "We accept your invitation, Captain. We will arrive shortly." The screen went dark. Una picked up her tea and took another sip. Well, she said to her crew, this should be interesting. The shuttle bay of the Taeguk Rising was enormous. Threll and Keth stood at the entrance, staring at rows of small ships, vehicles, and equipment that stretched into the distance. Humans moved everywhere, carrying supplies, working on machines, and talking to each other in loud voices. This is just one of 4 shuttle bays, Lieutenant Dohun said. He had been assigned to guide the visitors. He was a friendly young man who seemed genuinely happy to show off his ship. We can launch 30 shuttles at the same time if we need to. Why would you need 30 shuttles at once? Keth asked. Dohun shrugged. Evacuation, ground assault, search and rescue. You never know what situation you might face. Threll noticed that Dohun said ground assault as casually as he said search and rescue, as if attacking planets was just another normal activity. They walked through the shuttle bay and into the main corridors of the ship. The hallways were wide and well lit. Signs on the walls pointed to different sections: engineering, medical, crew quarters, armory, training deck. Armory? Threll asked. You keep weapons stored separately? Of course, Dohun said. We have enough personal weapons for every crew member, plus extras. Rifles, pistols, grenades, combat armor. If we ever get boarded, every human on this ship can fight. Keth's skin turned gray. You expect to be boarded? We prepare for everything. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. That is a human saying. They passed a group of crew members walking the other way. The humans nodded at Dohun and stared curiously at the aliens, but no one seemed afraid or hostile. They looked at Threll and Keth the same way they might look at an unusual animal, curious but not worried. Dohun led them to a large open area filled with exercise equipment. Humans ran on machines, lifted heavy weights, and practiced fighting with each other on padded mats. The sound of grunting and shouting filled the air. This is one of our training decks, Dohun explained. Every crew member is required to exercise regularly and maintain basic combat skills. Threll watched 2 humans fighting on one of the mats. They grabbed each other, threw each other to the ground, and hit each other with closed fists. One human wrapped his arm around the other's neck and squeezed until his opponent tapped the mat 3 times. They are hurting each other, Keth said, horrified. Just sparring, Dohun said with a smile. Friendly practice. See? Now they are helping each other up. Indeed, the 2 fighters were now standing together, laughing and patting each other on the back. One had blood running from his nose. He wiped it away with his hand and said something that made his opponent laugh harder. You practice violence for fun? Threll asked. Dohun thought about this. We practice so that if we ever need to fight for real, we know how. The pain and bruises are just part of learning. Humans heal quickly. They continued the tour. Dohun showed them the medical bay, which was staffed by doctors and machines that could treat almost any injury. He showed them the engineering section, where the fusion reactor hummed with power and technicians monitored countless systems. Threll asked about the 3rd power source, the one the computer had not been able to identify. Dohun's friendly expression changed slightly. That is classified information, he said, but I can tell you what it does, in general terms. If the Taeguk Rising is ever captured by an enemy, if we are boarded and cannot win, we have a final option. A way to make sure the enemy does not get our ship. You would destroy your own vessel? Keth asked. We would destroy everything within a very large radius, Dohun said quietly. No enemy would ever use our technology against us. No human crew would ever be taken prisoner. He paused. It has never been used. We hope it never will be. But it exists, just in case. Threll felt cold. This was not the thinking of a peaceful species. This was the thinking of beings who had faced terrible enemies and decided that death was better than surrender. The tour ended in the mess hall, the ship's main eating area. Hundreds of humans sat at long tables, eating food, drinking various liquids, and talking loudly. The noise was incredible. People laughed, argued, and shouted across the room at each other. Ensign Mireille joined them. She brought 2 trays of food and set them down at an empty table. I thought you might be hungry, she said. I was not sure what you eat, so I brought some basics. Bread, fruit, vegetables. Let me know if you need something else. Threll looked at the food. It was simple and colorful. He did not feel hungry, but he appreciated the gesture. Your crew seems happy, he observed. They laugh and smile often. Mireille nodded. Life on a warship can be hard. Long deployments, dangerous missions, time away from family. We try to build a community here. We take care of each other. It makes the difficult times easier. But you are on a ship full of weapons, Keth said. A ship designed to destroy. How can you be happy knowing what this vessel can do? Miri looked at him with a strange expression. Not angry, but sad. The weapons are not what define us, she said. They are tools. We would rather never use them, but they give us the ability to protect the people we love. Every human here has family back on Earth or on our colony worlds. When I think about the missiles and cannons on this ship, I do not think about destruction. I think about my parents back in Busan. I think about my little brother who wants to be a pilot. These weapons exist to keep them safe. Thrall considered her words. He had studied thousands of species, but he had never met one quite like these humans. They were not bloodthirsty conquerors seeking glory. They were not mad warriors who enjoyed killing. They were ordinary beings who had simply decided that they would never be victims. They would protect their families at any cost. This ship, Thrall said slowly, the Taeguk Rising, how does it compare to your other warships? Mireille looked confused. What do you mean? Is this your strongest vessel? Your most powerful battleship? Mireille laughed softly. The Taeguk Rising is a patrol battleship. We use her for border security and exploration support. She is a good ship, but she is not meant for major combat. Thrall felt his heart stop. Not meant for major combat? Our real warships stay closer to home. The heavy dreadnoughts, the carrier fleets, the siege ships, those are kept in reserve for true emergencies. She smiled at him. You should be glad you met us out here instead of near Earth. Our home defense fleet might have been less friendly. Thrall needed to sit down. He had thought the Taeguk Rising was the pinnacle of human military power. He had been terrified of its weapons, its armor, its soldiers, and now he learned it was just a patrol ship, a small vessel meant for light duties. Somewhere near a planet called Earth, there were ships that made the Taeguk Rising look like a toy. I need to return to my ship, Thrall said weakly. I need to think. Captain Yuna's ready room was small and simple. A desk, 2 chairs, a window that looked out at the stars. On the wall hung a painting of mountains and rivers, a scene from Earth that Thrall did not recognize but found strangely beautiful. Yuna sat behind her desk. Thrall sat across from her. They were alone. Keth had returned to the Valorian ship to prepare their report. You wanted to speak privately, Yuna said. I am listening. Thrall gathered his thoughts. He had been a high observer for 300 years. He had studied civilizations that built monuments to their gods and civilizations that burned their own worlds in civil wars. He had seen beauty and horror in equal measure across the galaxy, but he had never been more confused than he was now. I need to understand, he said finally. The Valorians have cataloged over 40,000 species. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have watched wars that consumed entire star systems. We thought we understood how civilizations work. He leaned forward. But your people make no sense to me. Yuna smiled slightly. In what way? Your ship has weapons that could destroy worlds. Your crew trains for combat every day. You carry enough missiles to start a war. Yet you invited us aboard. You fed us. You showed us your secrets. You have been nothing but kind. He spread his hands in frustration. Why build such terrible machines if you do not wish to use them? Why prepare so thoroughly for war if you want peace? What are you so afraid of? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She looked out the window at the stars, her face thoughtful. Let me show you something, she said. She touched a control on her desk, and a holographic image appeared between them. It was a planet, blue oceans, green lands, white clouds, small and fragile looking against the blackness of space. This is Earth, Yuna said. Our home. The only home we had for millions of years. She zoomed out. The planet became a tiny dot among millions of stars. We evolved on that little world. We were born there, fought there, loved there, died there. For most of our history, we thought we were alone in the universe. We thought Earth was everything. She zoomed out further. Now Thrall could see the shape of human territory. A small cluster of stars, maybe 100 systems, surrounded by the vast unknown darkness. When we finally reached the stars, we found that we were not alone, and the universe was not friendly. We encountered species that wanted to conquer us, species that wanted to eat us, species that saw our little worlds as resources to be taken. Una looked at Threll directly. Her eyes were hard now, hard and old. We almost did not survive. 3 times in our early expansion, we faced enemies that nearly destroyed us completely. We lost colonies. We lost fleets. We lost millions of our people, children, families. Entire worlds burned because we were not strong enough to protect them. She paused and Threll saw something in her face that he recognized. Pain, old pain that had never fully healed. So we changed. We built ships like the Teguk Rising. We trained our people to fight. We put weapons on every vessel and taught every citizen how to use them. We decided that we would never be weak again. We would never watch our families die because we were not prepared. But you are at peace now, Threll said. You said yourself that the Terran Republic has treaties and allies. Peace built on strength, Una replied. Our neighbors do not attack us because they know the cost would be too high. Our enemies do not threaten our colonies because they have seen what happens to those who do. Every gun on this ship, every missile, every Marine exists to make sure that the horrors of our past never happen again. She leaned back in her chair. You asked what we are afraid of. The answer is simple. We are afraid of losing everything. We are afraid of watching our children die. We are afraid of extinction. Threll understood. He did not like it, but he understood. The humans were not monsters. They were survivors. They had been hurt badly, and they had responded by becoming something that could never be hurt that way again. And if you meet a species that means you no harm? He asked quietly. Like us. Una's expression softened. The hardness left her eyes, replaced by warmth. Then we make friends, she said. We trade. We learn from each other. We share what we know and discover what we can accomplish together. Humans are very good at friendship. Hi, observer. Almost as good as we are at war. She stood up and walked to the window. I would like the Valorians to be our friends. Your people have traveled the galaxy for 40,000 years. You have knowledge and wisdom that we lack, and we have things to offer you in return. Protection, technology, a strong ally in a dangerous universe. Threll rose as well. He looked at this small human woman, this captain of a ship that could break worlds, and he saw something he had not expected to find. Hope. I will bring your message to the Valorian Council, he said. I believe they will agree to open relations. Una turned and smiled at him. It was a genuine smile, full of warmth and welcome. I am glad. And High Observer, thank you for taking the time to understand us. Most species see our weapons and assume we are monsters. You looked deeper. That takes courage. An hour later, Threll stood on the bridge of the Whisper of Stars. The Teguk Rising floated on the main screen, its ugly hull somehow looking less threatening now that he understood what it represented. What will you tell the council? Keth asked. Threll watched the human ship for a long moment. He thought about weapons that could break moons. He thought about soldiers who fought each other for fun. He thought about a small woman drinking tea while commanding enough firepower to end civilizations. I will tell them the truth, he said, that we have found the 40,001st species, that they are small and soft and fragile, that they laugh easily and fight for fun and drink bitter water for pleasure. He turned to look at Keth directly. And I will tell them that if we are wise, if we are very wise indeed, we will make sure that these humans never have a reason to point their guns at us. Because I have seen what they built out of fear. I do not want to see what they would build out of anger. The stars blurred as the Whisper of Stars jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the humans and their impossible ship. In the mess hall of the Teguk Rising, Ensign Mirai finished writing her report on the alien visitors. She looked up at Captain Una, who had joined the crew for dinner. They seemed nice, Mirai said. The Valorians, I mean. Scared, but nice. Captain Una nodded, sipping her tea. They are nice. They are exactly the kind of species we should be making friends with. Peaceful explorers who want to learn about the universe. She set down her cup and looked at the stars through the mess hall window. Let us hope they stay that way, she said quietly. And let us hope that when they tell their people about us, their people understand what we are. What are we, Captain? Una smiled, but there was something ancient and tired in her eyes. We are the species that survived, and we will keep surviving, no matter what the universe throws at us. That is the human way. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the whisper of stars carried its message home. The Valorians would learn about humanity. They would learn about the ships and the weapons and the soldiers who practice violence like it was a game. And they would learn the most important lesson of all, that the most dangerous species in the galaxy were also the most loyal friends you could ever have, if you were smart enough not to make them your enemy.